In this video today, we're going to look at two types of underfloor heating systems which are suitable for tiled floors. Both electric cable systems, both made by Devi, and in each case we're going to look at the use of a Dural Durabase membrane and how that can really help these systems and make for a very good, strong installation. Now the first one we'll look at is Devi mat. This is a traditional system with cables onto a ready-made mat which you roll out and stick down to the floor. This system's been around, to my knowledge, for at least 20 years. It's a very good system, and what we'll do is look at the installation of this and also how the Durabase CI++ matting helps with that installation. Then we're going to look at the Devi loose cable system, which is using the Durabase CI-H carrier mat, and we'll look at the advantages and the way that that system is used and what that can do differently to this system. The first thing we're going to look at is the Devi mat, and a few things to consider when we install this. So this is normally how it's packaged, depending upon the different size mat. In the box we have the matting, we have some installation instructions and some other bits and pieces. So I'll put those to one side for now. Well, the matting is wrapped in a plastic film, which is basically to protect the adhesive that's on there and stop it sticking to the box that it's packaged in. So if we take off the mat, we see that this is quite sticky. It's got an adhesive applied. Now, when we're installing this onto a floor, we've got to think about what we're installing to. It could be a concrete floor, it could be an insulation board, cement board, it could be these XPS insulation boards which are commonly used and are a good idea for many reasons because it helps with the heat of these mats. One thing we don't want to do is fix to timber anymore because British Standards has removed the use of timber as an approved substrate for tiling, so keep that in mind. Again, if we need technical support, we can offer that on the numbers below and that we'll show at the end of the video today. But because this is sticky, what would happen if we stuck it onto dust or a dirty floor? Well, it's not going to stick, is it? So one thing that we would consider doing in nearly every case is to prime the floor. So that's what we'll do now. So just using some acrylic tile primer. Never ever use PVA, as we know. That is not suitable for tiling. So just using some acrylic primer. We'll prime the floor. Now, some people may argue that it's not necessary to prime, which may be true if the floor is clean and dry and dust-free. In my experience, I would always suggest the following rule: if in doubt, prime it out, because it certainly will not do any harm at all. What we need to do, though, is let that primer dry. So now the primer's dried. This has taken approximately 20 minutes at room temperature and it's quite warm in here. So the primer's dry enough now to fix the matting. If the primer wasn't dry, obviously it's not going to stick very well. So we take the matting off the roll or unroll it as required, and quite simply it presses onto the floor. One thing you'll notice about these Devi mats is they are extremely well made. So the cables are flat, everything sticks nicely and just makes it a whole lot easier, really. Other mats, you may find you've got to use some tape, some glue from a glue gun, carpet adhesive, all manner of things might be needed to get that mat to lay flat. One of the things that's nice about Devi is generally they lay very flat, straight out of the box. So once that's done, what we need to think about, obviously as you're installing these, you've got to plan very carefully the area of the room. So this is just a very simple small square sample piece, but on a normal room you may have to go around the toilets, around the wash basins, around the bath, different obstacles. So you've got to really plan carefully and you cannot cut these mats. So this has been cut. Never ever ever cut the cables. If you are cutting to turn the mat around, you've got to cut through the mesh and avoid the cable. So quite often scissors is a safer option than a knife. So again, that's one of the things to consider with this type of mat, is the set out and the layout. Now, what happens next? For tiling, traditionally people would tile directly onto these mats. Technically that is possible, but also technically it's very difficult for a number of reasons. First of all, if you were to tile directly onto this, you have the risk of encapsulating air, so you could get air pockets around the cables, which is not good for heat distribution or for the health of the cables. But also as well, you run the risk of catching the cable with the metal trowel, so you could potentially snag the cable and damage it, which we obviously don't want. Another factor would be that if you ever came to change the floor tiles, well, taking the floor tiles up is going to pull the adhesive up, which is going to damage the cables. So we would always recommend use of a smoothing or self-leveling compound to encapsulate the floor afterwards. So here's one we prepared earlier. Now, the smoothing compound that you use or select should be suitable for this application, so it's got to be flexible. Check with the manufacturer. And one thing to keep in mind with smoothing compounds like this and self-leveling compounds is that while they're called self-leveling, technically they're not completely self-leveling. What we need to do really with a self-leveling compound is just give them a little help with a trowel, because that helps it to flood out. So just a little bit of gentle action with a trowel will help that to find its level, and ultimately after however long it takes to set, 15, 20, 30 minutes or so, you're left with a very firm, flat, suitable substrate for the tiling. But what we'll do next is include Durabase CI++ as a decoupling membrane for a number of reasons. So after approximately half an hour, we now have a dry, ready to use floor. The self-leveling compound is set and it's ready for application. So we could tile direct to this, but there are risks in doing that. Thermal expansion and contraction of the floor could carry through to the tiles, that is a possibility, or if there's movement in the subfloor below, again that could carry through to the tiles. So one thing that's recommended is to use Durabase CI++ decoupling mat. We'll do a future video on the matting itself, but for now we'll just cover briefly the installation process. So to install this, again, we talked about priming earlier on. Perhaps we need to prime the leveling compound, in which case we'd apply a primer in accordance with the manufacturer's recommendations. We'd have to wait again for that primer to dry. This primer, this self-leveling compound, I know though is suitable for tiling straight onto. So what we'll do is skip the priming process and apply tile adhesive directly. So this is just a flexible tile adhesive suitable for this application. It's applied with a 4mm notch trowel, because what we don't want is too much adhesive underneath, but also we don't want too little adhesive underneath either. So spreading the adhesive. And one little tip to keep in mind is the angle that we hold the trowel at. So if the trowel is too low, the ribs of adhesive will be too small. Really want to keep it at an upright angle so we get some good thick ribs with plenty of adhesive. So the matting, and this comes on a 30-meter roll usually, or a 10-meter or 5-meter roll, so it would be unrolled into the adhesive bed. And you can do this a number of ways. You can use your hand, you can use a clean trowel just to apply an even pressure onto the mat. Make sure that it's bedded well in to the adhesive. Like so. Next step. So this now is ready for tiling. The matting will protect the tile from movement, like we say, but also gives us a really good, strong base for the tiles. So the tile adhesive on the matting will fill the pockets, the lugs in the matting, but also bond onto the mesh on top. So you get a very strong bond. Just to demonstrate that, so with Durabase CI++, we want to spread the adhesive into the matting, but it's not enough to just do that lightly. We need to use the flat edge of the trowel and drive the adhesive in. And it's very easy to do on this matting because it goes in one pass. So once it's filled, all the cavities in the mat are filled with adhesive. Again, we just need to use the notched edge of the trowel to create the ribs. Like so. And it's that simple. So perhaps if the tile's a large format, you would back butter the tile with some adhesive, but that now is ready to tile, and you're going to have a heated tile floor that will stand the test of time. So now we're going to look at Durabase CI-H matting, which is this yellow matting, slightly different to the one you see there, along with the use of loose electric underfloor heating cables from Devi. So this is the same principle. We're going to end up with a heated tiled floor, but it's maybe a faster installation, in some ways a lot easier too. So just to talk you through this process, Durabase CIH matting is of a similar construction, but only 2 layers with this. The way this is designed, it does decouple, so it removes or isolates stresses from the floor beneath, prevents them coming through to the tiles below. But this also doubles up as a carrier mat for cables, and it's very, very easy to install. So if you remember in the last video, we had to prime the floor before we began. Now, with tile adhesive onto most substrates, if they're clean and dry, maybe there's no need to prime. But again, we look to the manufacturer's advice with the adhesives, whether we need to do that or not. In this case, we're going to skip that process because I know we can. What we're going to do is fix some CIH matting directly onto some XPS insulation board, which is cement faced. So it is a good substrate to fix direct to. The way this is installed, we use a 6mm notch trowel in this case rather than a 4. That's purely because of the different fleece. So it's a slightly different fleece on the back of this one. So again, same process, spread the adhesive, but use the teeth of the trowel to create nice tall ribs. Again, we don't want too much adhesive, but we don't want too little either. So again, these come on rolls. It's a case of unroll it into the adhesive and make sure it's well bedded in. So we can use the trowel again, just to make sure it's well bedded. Or you can use a roller if you've got larger areas. So that now is ready for cable. It's that quick. Just to illustrate, we have some loose cable here. This cable comes on rolls. You would plan the room accordingly. Also anticipate where you need to go around obstacles. Perhaps there's going to be a bath on the floor, so you wouldn't heat under the bath, you would go around. And the beauty of this system is it allows you to plan your floor very easily. And it is as simple as just going around the lugs, and you can create your own heated areas very quickly and very simply. I'm trying to keep it out of the adhesive here as it's still wet. But hopefully you can see that the cable now, I'll just let that run off the edge, is within the mat, and we create a heated floor. We issue guidance notes at Dural on how to heat the floor to whatever level is required. So you might want a hotter floor, maybe just for as a more of a primary heat source. But for comfort heating, normally 3 lugs is the correct spacing, and that is now ready to tile to. So there is no need to use a self-leveling compound on this mat. We can tile direct to it. Similar process to what we've demonstrated before, but I'll just show how that works. So the adhesive needs to be pressed into the matting again, just to make sure that all the cavities are filled. And the beauty of this carrier mat system is that the cable is protected from the trowel edge. So there's no chance of damaging that cable as we're doing it. And as you can see, that fills the cavities very easily. So once that's done, more adhesive down, we create the ribs. Perhaps we back butter the tile again and we tile. That is a much faster and in many ways more flexible system than the one we showed earlier. So that illustrates Devi mats, traditional mat system used with self-leveling compounds and Durabase CI++. And then we've also looked at Durabase CI-H matting with the loose Devi cables, which is a direct tile-to system. So in conclusion, what can we say about these two systems? Well, both achieve the same result. You end up with a heated, comfortable, tiled and durable floor that will last. In each case, we've got a decoupling membrane involved, which removes the risk of any stresses from the heat or from the subfloor affecting the tiled surface. So that's a positive thing. Both achieve the same result, but as you can see, two fairly different systems. This one overall height build-up is around about 12 millimeters before tiling, and this one around about 6 millimeters before tiling. So that's one consideration. The other is the time involved with installation, so that may factor into your decision as well. But in any case, both available via Dural, and for more details, or if you'd like any more guidance notes or further information, please reach out to our team on the contact details which are below. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and please comment as well. Ask questions in the comment section because we are on hand to answer any and all questions.